I'm Anna.
I'm Ben.
We're AutoSave. Welcome to our channel.
Today we're watching Steins Gate 0, Season 1, Episode 4. Last episode was about Christmas.
Yes.
And
that's exactly what that's all it was about.
See,
nothing else.
I was affected at the end of last episode because
Yeah?
I like Christmas episodes of things that are all about positivity and cheer.
And friendship.
I just got done rewatching a Christmas episode of Ted Lasso. You haven't seen that, but I have, and it was great. And I felt so wholesome, and I loved it. And then it made me think about the Christmas episode that we had last week in Steins Gate 0. And I'm like, God, what is Mayuri even thinking? Okarine's going through fucking hell and back. I don't know.
Yeah, not the cheeriest ending for a holiday season episode.
At least we know that Ferris pays for the rent. I guess that's a positive
awesome
to stick on.
Little information drop there that made me extremely happy. At the moment, my mind is like completely full of trying to decipher facts and transitioning from Steins Gate to Steins Gate 0, specifically with Suzuha, with the choice of the video call from Okabe, him having to see the death of Kurisu once to be able to view it, but in Steins Gate 0, this Suzuha doesn't know of the video, doesn't bring it up to Okabe. There's the slap from Suzuha instead of Mayuri.
Yeah.
And my mind is just trying to connect and figure things out. And I'm like, if this is the possible Okabe that is the one that decides to do the video, to text back in time to his past self, if Suzuha, this Suzuha that he knows right now, is the one that goes back to that Okabe, having already had these interactions here. You know, I'm trying to like figure it all out and decipher it.
Yeah.
And at the moment I'm like, well, Suzuha would have had to know about the video.
Yeah.
Okabe was probably, I don't know, 30s in the video. I don't know. He wasn't like really old seemingly in the video.
Yeah.
I feel like they're possibly showing us how he gets to the point of making that video.
That's what I think.
So I would think that this Suzuha is the one that we see having the interaction where Mayuri slaps instead, because obviously she's seen that it didn't work out very well when she was the one that slapped Okabe. But I'm still trying to make it all make sense in my head, like clearly, because if we can go back in time, why would we be sending Suzuha back to an earlier Okabe? Why wouldn't this Okabe just decide to go back in time to rewrite Kurisu's death?
Because of the time that's already passed, right?
Does that matter?
I think so. My question while you were talking was like, okay, the Okabe we get from the video, like, is there any chance at all that Okabe is AI? And it's like a video that's like fabricated, you know, of like Okabe has died and his consciousness has been put into an AI somehow, like,
that'd be wild.
You know. Yeah, Amadeus, but I don't know. Interesting.
See, my mind is just like going into this episode. I don't know why. Maybe it makes perfect sense and like clicks, you know, without having to like think about it too hard for other people. But my mind is like swimming at the moment.
Okay.
Like with a bunch of questions, really, of like why this, like narrative writing, like why this choice when in my stupidity I feel like there was possibly another choice or a question with that choice. It's all gonna make sense eventually to me.
Yeah.
But at the moment I have questions.
I think that the deciding moment of Okabe choosing to do what we saw in Steins Gate was that moment was the real only choice in 1 in a billion. That one in that current situation needed to make the choice that he did, and that needed to happen by the process of information that went down. And that being Suzuha relaying the video. And remember, he needed to have that doubt, to have that decision of not going forward, to then be given what he was so that he could go down that path that we saw. But I'm nervous because it seems like I'm speaking for myself here, but 4 episodes into Steins Gate, I thought I might have an idea of the vibe of the show, but I was completely wrong because it turned into a completely, like, a masterpiece, right? We're only 4 episodes into this, and it already feels like we're in deep, but I know that it's going to get deeper.
I mean, we're at least emotionally deep already with the ending of last episode. Like, that hurt. Because we saw it coming. It's one of those horrifying things where the viewer knows exactly the path that this character is going down and how much it's literally going to tear their heart out of their chest, and we have to watch them do it and then watch them basically grieve again.
Maybe we'll have something positive this episode. Christmas just happened. New Year's is next, New Year's,
right? Yep. Another chance. Holiday cheer.
Ready? Sweet. What? What?
Is that the future?
What? So do you think it's like world lines are somehow able to be changing again, or do you think it's like the idea of the reading Steiner maybe has gotten a new like piece to it?
I thought of why he might not want to be the one that goes back and time travels. Even though he has the reading Steiner, wouldn't you try first to relay that message to a different version of yourself so that you still have, if that goes wrong and it doesn't work, you still have the time machine in your time or in your world or in your path that you can use if that fails? You're like holding your cards, you know? You're like, I'm going to use some opportunities, but don't waste them all. He thought that if the world lines had changed, then...
Wow, what a title.
He could have at least peeked. He didn't have to pull it all out of the bag. What?
待たせてごめんなさい。まだったんだが、あちらの電波状況が悪くてね、だいぶ遅い時間になってしまって申し訳なかったね。参加させてもらったしね。可愛らしいクレヨンですね、教授。ひなさんが用意してくれたプレゼント。ウィンターローは何が当たったんだい？あ、うるさい。もう切るぞ。フレンドリーになってくれているみたいだね。だいぶ砕けてるわ。
Maho doesn't look upset.
Yeah.
Hopes? Maho's expressions and feelings have changed.
人の記憶を保持するべく作られたシステムだ。プロセスと構造は同じ。アマデウスだって恋をするなってほしいと思ってるよ。アマデウスは本物の彼女ではないですけどね。ここはどうやらお気に召さないらしいね。
Hmm. How much would you let Maho in on, you know? Would she even believe it? I'm sure to a certain
I
extent.
mean, she believes in AI possibly feeling love, so.
Huh.
Is that suspicious?
Oh?
1998? The red. No. Yeah, yeah. Mayuri would have done that, I believe it, but I'm also suspicious because of the red hair.
Show me more of Daru. Look at him. He's so fit.
How'd they get split up?
What? Is this a different world line where this has happened?
Someone else is changing the world lines, and so he's just getting memories of them? Like a different version of himself is switching, or someone else is?
That's reading Steiner, right?
Mm-hmm. 'Can read facial emotions. So interesting.
Do you think this is the person who went over to Rico's house for some reason?
Possibly the person at Ruko's house. But then Mayuri won't be her mom. She might not want to do that. Does she run away?
What?
鈴葉
どう
見たのデータを一通り調べてみたけどないよ。
一見平和に見えるこの世界で名や行方不明の人って結構いるんだね。そういうオカリンおじさんにも話したんだっけ。
いろいろ当たってみて。
今度お礼言わなきゃね。
きっとオカリンも喜ぶと思う。
I'm glad that he left the library to answer.
図書館にいたんだ。
あ、ごめん。謝る。ごめんなさい。
気にしなく。
間違ったことをごまかしたりするのは嫌いだもの。
12年前からの新聞。
The differences are so interesting.
例の身元不明の人？
Who's that person in the background? I'm suspicious.
探してみましょうか。
そんなことできるのか。
アデウスの本体はビクトルコンドリア大学の研究棟のサーバーにあるの。研究用のコンピューターとネットワークを
That's fucking
That's
terrifying.
wild. How'd they get permission for that?
わけない。
でもそんなことやってしまっていい？
バレなければいいのよ。悪いことをしているわけじゃないんでしょ。
無論だ。
Still experimenting.
あとはあんたの判
少し考えさせてくれ。
じゃなかった。
Aw.
頼まれて買い出しだったのにゃ。お父さんのお客さんの人質に住むことになりまして、その準備を。
I mean, at the same time that we're getting these pieces of information, it has to be.
I wonder if she got an IBN 5100.
僕だってこのくらい。少しオカリンには頼みに。ここはフェイリスにお任せにゃ。
そういえば二人とも昔から地元か。
にゃ。行方不明の女の子。とりあえず黒木に聞いてみるにゃ。僕お父さんに聞いてみます。
ああ、悪い。
それじゃあそろそろ行っちゃうな。難しい顔してないでフェイリスたちに話してにゃ。
Great advice.
手がかりはなしか。
ごめんや。
いや、こちらこそすまない。
おさげの幽霊の話は聞いたにゃ。噂になってる都市伝説ね。
Suzuha?
時間のあたりでちょっと訪ねてくるおさげの女の子の幽霊が出るら。
レスキネン教授。
Is this girl like a clone or something? Are we
What
going
the fuck?
clones?
もういいって言ってるの。ありがとね。
いや
The next step after AI cloning
And getting
Makise
it to
Kurisu.
feel love,
どうしたんだ？
like a real human emotions.
Oh god, what if he's trying to like bring his like daughter or something back to life?
元係の件は私の責任なんだから。
バカ言うなよ。親の責任だろう、上皇。どう？今のかなりパパっぽかったけど。
You did great.
抱きついてもいいのだぜ。それを餅は餅屋って言うっしょ。文化に頼むのが一番だと思ったんだよ、ね。
Who would be a specialist in that?
反対。
心当たりはあるのか、ダル。
甘く見ないでほしいな。僕はオタだけど顔は広いのだぜ。
Online.
楽はもう済ませてあるのさ。ちょうどドンピー。よければすぐにでも来てくれるってさ。
ダルに任せよ
来てるらしいんで、この後向かうって。
う。また早いな。
遅いよりはいいんで。
ルカ子。もしもし。
あ、岡部さん。すみません。今大丈夫ですか？僕、岡部さんに相談したいことがあって、会っていただけないでしょうか？
今から。
はい。
これからちょっと人が来ることに夕方過ぎじゃダメか。
すみません。の方が。
悪い、後で連絡。はい、今開けます。
Moeka. Fucking Moeka.
Oh, no!
Ah.
桐生萌香です。でも。
No.
Okay, that was Steins Gate Zero, Season 1, Episode 4. They're turning things up.
Yeah, I have nothing to say.
Nothing to say?
Because my mind it was already swimming before I entered this episode, and now it kind of feels like it was a balloon and someone took a pin and went pop.
Okay, so I have a question for you. Do you think that as of last episode, Kaguri never existed, but after this world line change, if there was one, she did?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so if we think about this shift that happens, let's like break it down to the first thing we noticed as soon as this possible world line reading Steiner event happened. The first thing that felt off to us was Maho and how Maho was handling the phone call.
Yeah.
And then we get the idea about the fact that Okabe called Kurisu back, has no recollection of doing that.
Yeah.
And then we get the idea that the professor's real goal is to have the AI fall in love.
Yeah.
And
Or
that's why
love.
or feel love. And that is why he wants to use Okabe for that.
Yeah.
That's why I'm going like creepy clone child of Kurisu and Okabe. I don't even know.
So you think that as of last episode, in terms of, stupid to use it here, but canon, Kaguri never existed. But because
or never came with.
Or never came with. That's fair. Okay.
Because we get, in the first episode, we get Mayuri with a small redhead child with Suzuha.
What a way to add more into a story without being a retcon, if that's what it is. Because, like, how you're using the entire idea of, like, the premise of the show, the changing of world lines, to be able to make such a significant difference without going back and rewriting history. That's awesome. That's incredible.
And I what they're possibly also showing is what we saw from Steins Gate is how easily a brilliant mind could either be doing something really good for humanity or really bad for humanity.
Yeah.
Just based on whatever train of thought they were on and whoever they were working for. We get this idea that Kurisu was this villain to Suzuha in Steins Gate because of what she does in the future. But that didn't match the line of thought and study and what we would have perceived Kurisu that we knew doing.
Yeah.
And then in this episode, we're seeing the professor in a building or a place that he might not normally be at. I'm thinking that what they're trying to show us is that it matters whose side you're on, and you know that a brilliant mind can be utilized in very good ways for humanity and very bad ways for humanity.
So I think that after the split that we've had in 23B, we've gone down a route that introduces characters like Maho and Professor Leskinen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of that change, and then, assumingly, we changed world lines, the situation as I see it now, like in theory, could be that Professor Leskinen, at some point in his life, had somebody who he was close to, who was younger, and lost them. And in an attempt to bring them back through a clone type like measure, he starts with AI, making memories with them, wants the idea of love and the capability of love to exist, has at some point in the future been successful in cloning. You wouldn't want to start, you'd want a test subject first, right? You clone Makise Kurisu as
who's
Kaguri,
already dead.
As Kaguri has obviously looks exactly like Makise Kurisu. What if we seen, like, we haven't seen anything about Kaguri, right? But we've seen one thing about them, and that is that they are willing to hold Suzuha at gunpoint because of their love for Mayuri. If your goal from an AI
that
and your main goal is
whatever voice
love,
they were hearing.
Yeah.
Because we were getting these flashes of this face, and it was given to us in almost a traumatic, creepy way, which gave me the sense that, like, she's not a war orphan. She is, like, an escaped subject that was experimented on, clone-type energy, and finally found love in Mayuri.
I wonder if she has... Okay, obviously we're going pretty deep into theory stuff, but let's go on it. Let's go on it.
I think this episode asks for it.
So, if that is the case, could she have memories of Makise Kurisu as a clone? Like, imagine, like, I'm just going fucking off the deep end and gonna have fun with it, right? Imagine that she is having memories of what is currently happening in between Kiyoma and AI Makise Kurisu. Because at some point in the future, if this AI is integrated into a body with a clone, there could be that inner voice of the AI of Kurisu talking to her, or memory being spurred up.
Hearing voices. Yeah, you're right. Like, what if that voice isn't even from Kaguri's memories? What if that's from Kurisu's memories?
What if Kaguri's memories at a certain point were this version of Kurisu's, and that is blending
Why
over
else
a
would
bit?
it be so opaque and hard to completely understand or see the faces?
Yeah.
We were seeing what Kaguri could see. So it's vagueness and you know, which is really interesting because we get that idea all last episode of the term vagueness in terms of memories.
Yeah.
And how an AI wouldn't have vagueness, but in order to kind of replicate the vagueness of human thought, they store some memories somewhere else.
Yeah. And like, if you're setting
But that
up...
would change if you put it into a human body, right? If you cloned and then put those memories in there, it wouldn't work the same way as artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
It has become a living, breathing person whose brain would be working the same way that a human's brain would be working, which would cause vagueness of memory.
But also, if you're trying to set up like a potential villain, right? If Kaguri could somehow see or understand that if Suzuha and her plan were to play out the exact way she wants it, she would never exist in that same way. Because Makise Kurisu would never die then. And then if she didn't exist, that connection with her and Mayuri wouldn't exist.
I mean, that's I could see that too. Wow.
It's obviously we're going pretty far, but I think that at some point it could like intertwine with what's happening. The idea that somebody else has built a microwave, my default is that it's this person, right? You know?
I would agree with that. Why else
Kaguri.
would they be guests at Ruka's place?
Also, like the first thing I thought of at the guest at Ruka's place was, remember how at Ruka's place in original Steins Gate somebody had left an IBN 5100 there?
Yep.
And like, I don't know.
And we know that Kaguri would have any information that Suzuha had because Suzuha was telling Kaguri all about it.
Interesting.
But then the Moeka introduction.
This episode?
This episode too. Is this just to remind us that Moeka in this world line is still alive, but in this world line Moeka might be living a different life than when CERN contacted Moeka?
Yeah.
And that this is actually just like an innocent Moeka that could be a potential friend in the future?
Okay. Wait a second. So, can you okay, are you in the same place of believing that if anybody in the series so far has made a phone microwave, it's probably Kaguri?
Yes.
If that's the case, why did they need to switch world lines?
Maybe
because
they're trying to get the IBN.
Maybe. I don't think that they would have accounted necessarily. My first train of thought was like, oh, it's because Okabe had like done something or realized something or reacted away.
Well, yeah,
but
I was wondering, what if it was Okabe in the future who did it, and that's why this one that we're witnessing, because we're staying in one timeline, we're watching this one, so therefore we don't know if that could be him in the future doing something, and we wouldn't see it necessarily because we're following this one and we're just seeing how it would affect him.
Well, it would have to be somebody who in that timeline, right, in that immediate time, had changed it right then, but he did see the future. Fuck.
And it was a phone call that he got. That's when he like woke up from his dream, basically, is what he heard on the other end of the phone call.
I like that.
Maybe it's upgraded from text message. It's a literal voice message, and then we get a video message.
Oh, that could be cool. Interesting. And we obviously know that the emphasis of the phone, like, being important in terms of keeping a video on it, like Suzuha is able to, that could be a plot point that wraps up at the end of the series, you know?
But what does Okabe do here in terms of, he gets this call from Ruka, like, hey, I need advice, please come over, which is obviously Ruka trying to get Okabe there without saying anything overly suspicious that if anyone overheard.
So
At least in my mind.
Do you think Ruka called because the question had been asked, or do you think it's something completely separate? Because I think it's something completely separate.
Do you think it's an arranged marriage?
No.
Okay, because and why else would Ruka call Okabe?
That's true.
You know,
You're
Ruka
not...
has feelings for Okabe. Ruka in this world line is a boy. This is a family friend and guest that the father has brought in. Kaguri is around early 20s. It could be like, my son isn't growing up and getting a wife, so I'm gonna try to arrange a marriage here right now.
I don't know, because that, like, I'm having trouble thinking of any other, like, circumstances where Ruka's like, I need you right now, unless it had to do with what he was talking about.
Either Ruka is able to answer a question of Okabe's, or Ruka specifically wants Okabe for advice.
Yeah.
And I feel like romantic or love would definitely be
what if it's
a place or area that Ruka would call Okabe.
What if Ruka doesn't remember the help that her dad gave Kaguri in, like, years ago, after she ran away from Suzuha, and at the moment Ruka's like, oh my god, this, like, they're way too close. I don't want my dad cheating on my mom, and, like, I need your advice for it, because, like, they're really close right now, and that's weird.
Or Ruka thinks that this kid was kidnapped or something.
Maybe, but it's not a kid anymore,
well,
right?
Like, they were kidnapped. I don't know. I feel like we have some good ideas, some good little brainstorms happening right now.
I love the consistency. There was a frame in this episode that we got a little bit of Maho's room, and we learned last episode that Maho needed to clean her room, and I think that's like, we're just seeing it again, and I think that's really good consistency, and I appreciated that.
I like how the shift in emotions for Maho is so subtle that I almost for a couple minutes thought that I was wrong and that nothing really had changed or nothing really was different, because they utilized something that Maho did feel and does feel, which is that idea of someone out there knows Kurisu better than I do, and that feeling of almost loneliness there, regret there, of not knowing Kurisu better than someone else, not having had more time with Kurisu, that there are things that she doesn't know, that they utilize that in this shift to kind of make the viewer be like, wait, is Maho acting slightly different than the scene that came before?
Yeah.
Or is she just actually way more focused on a jealousy aspect?
Yeah. Or she's putting up a front, like you had suggested, to the professor in the moment. Yeah. I get you, because her desire to also want to talk to AI Kurisu on Deus Right, like when she walked into the room, or her thought, I guess, about it. Mm-hmm. And then I really like what they're doing with Maho's character, because they could have, like, left it at that, but I like how she's like meeting head on the feelings of, like, I wanted to get closer to this and break that layer down, and you guys did it immediately.
Let's talk about calling Kurisu back. So he finds out that literally right after that phone call, he had called Kurisu back.
Uh-huh.
So was their conversation exactly the same as it was before Maho or Mayuri interrupted and or overheard?
Did Mayuri even overhear?
Did Maho come and say something different, and that is why Okabe then calls Kurisu back to apologize in front of Maho for Maho taking the phone? There's like an empty hole there now of what exactly happened in this possible world line. Go back a minute to that phone call conversation.
Yeah.
How did that phone call conversation actually change? What was actually different from what we witnessed last episode? And
what made him decide to call back, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, okay, would you say that, like, if instead of Maho interrupting there and taking the phone, if instead of that it was Mayuri, for example, like walking in and being like, oh, who are you talking to? And Maho never was part of this interaction, then he would hang up the phone and then call Kurisu right back? Yeah, but then Maho was there when he came to after screaming. You're right. But her entire, it might have just been like a second off though, because her entire demeanor's changed. Her demeanor was different. Mayuri
when he goes back in to look for Mayuri, thinking, oh my god, what if Mayuri's not alive, if the world lines changed? Mayuri, no hint of like, oh, I saw something, but I don't want him to know that I overheard. No hint of like, Mayuri's eyebrows have been doing a very specific thing this in Steins Gate Zero.
Yeah.
Where they look a little bit sad, a little bit wistful, a little bit almost distant. And Mayuri looked completely like, oh, hey, you know, when he comes back.
Yeah.
No hint of anything there. So
You're
maybe
right.
Mayuri didn't follow him to the roof and didn't overhear anything.
I think that the change is that he never heard the line Maki, or in the world line that he is currently in, he would not have heard the idea that Mayuri, or that Kurisu's dead from Maho. I don't think that interaction would have happened in, like, just because of how, like, huge it was, right?
Right, and that's a Maho that is seemingly almost cynical about the whole idea of connecting with Amadeus, to the point where Maho last episode was incredibly worried about another person hurting the same way she has over not remembering or realizing soon enough that that this is not Kurisu.
Also, he doesn't have his phone in his hand here like once we wake up with this world line, but he definitely did at the end of episode 3 after the interaction with Maho. So it's like it seems like something occurred, like Maho like caught them talking.
Right, if Mayuri has never come to the roof, Maho follows Mayuri.
Correct.
So if Mayuri never came to the roof, then Maho's timing would have been different coming to the roof. If Maho did decide to follow.
Yeah, and
which
then
obviously Maho's on the roof. So.
And then upon having this like reading Steiner thing, the hang up happens, this interaction happens, and then a call back. But it's interesting, like the call back, right? Like we're already present in this body during this Maho interaction. And then time passes. So that means the call back had to have happened before this Maho interaction. So it probably went on the phone, Mayuri, on the phone, transition, right? Yeah?
Did Mayuri come up?
Yeah, if Mayuri came up, right? Because we know that apparently Kiyoma called Kurisu back, AI Kurisu back, and he doesn't remember it.
Why would he have hung up on Kurisu? In your mind, does that Mayuri, instead of listening in and secretly going back downstairs, does that Mayuri actually say something?
Yeah, or like he's like, oh, what are you doing? Come back to the party. There has to be a reason there for him to hang up the first time, right? Because if he calls back before he can remember it, it has to be before the Maho interaction.
That or this Okabe in this world line already knows that sentiment that Maho tells him in the other world line that we get right before, of like, you shouldn't be talking to her like that, she's dead.
Yeah.
And maybe the current Okabe at the time during the Christina phone call was like, maybe got a little bit flustered and was like, I can't be having this conversation, she's dead, hung up, and then felt bad for hanging up, so then called back.
Yeah.
It could have been his own volition and like his own realizing that the conversation was going in a direction it shouldn't be.
So when did the start of this episode happen then? Like the memory of like, or the vision of the future and then waking up at 8:05 in the morning. Because then after the intro, we're right back on the rooftop, you know? And it's a different time.
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know when the waking up happened.
Yeah.
That's a really great question.
I don't know.
It is not incredibly clear because then we go right back to the roof.
And then it's like, where exactly is this? It's like the idea of calling instead of sending the text, I think might be instrumental, you know? In whatever it ends up like playing out to be. Okay, I need to go back here. This is like the biggest part of the episode. This is like the most important part of the episode by far. Mayuri's outfit is great in the future. I love how she looks a little bit older as well, but nothing can ever compare to how fucking good old Daru looks. Look at that man. That man he's in the midst of a war. He is working his ass off. He doesn't even have time for snacks or suspenders now, but he's kept the hat and lost a bit of weight because of it. Oh, what a guy.
What a guy.
Dude, I wonder what that would look like. I want to see like Steins Gate 1 or something when it's just like following Daru and Mayuri for the rest of their World War ridden, world line or future. God, Daru's so fucking cool. I love his moment this episode where he was like, was that dad like? Did I do it right?
Did I do a good job? So I don't know if we've talked about this in discussion or if it was just outside of the channel, but that idea of love being brought up with the AI brings this idea or possibility where previously part of me had wondered if a certain world line Okabe would end up with Maho, like AI Kurisu once, or would end up with Mayuri.
Yeah.
And at the moment, I'm really, really unsure of anything in regards to that, because at first I was like, oh, maybe this Okabe would end up with Maho. It could possibly make sense eventually through working together, through grieving the fact that this isn't the real Kurisu. He could never actually feel love with this Kurisu, that he then somewhere along the line, him and Maho, like Kurisu wanted. But now we've changed the narrative of what Okabe's job here actually is, which is basically to get Kurisu to fall in love with him.
Yeah.
So that would leave no room for any other romantic.
In my mind, there's a world line that any of those things could occur, and he could be with any of these people. That being said, it was definitely like even more in our face this episode from AI Kurisu being like, you should get Maho to wear that. She'd like it. Like, then I'm like, oh my god, what the fuck? Like,
right. I mean, I figured from the phone call on the roof with the Christina bit that I almost felt like Kurisu, even AI Kurisu, wouldn't so readily go back into teasing about hooking up Maho and Okabe.
Yeah.
I think that AI Kurisu in that phone call almost seemed to like be feeling something too.
Yeah.
Or be a little confused, or be like, this is something I need to figure out. Why are you reacting this way? Why would you have made up a nickname for me?
Yeah.
I feel like their conversation was at a place where I almost can't imagine so readily going into that lingerie bit.
Yeah.
So what conversation did he actually have on the phone with her in this world line that we're now in?
And we like played it off cool, so it's not like we're gonna learn it from Kurisu. Also, she has the entire she has access to an entire internet database. That's
dangerous.
Terrifying.
Honestly,
if you could
you literally made this girl the mother of time machines in Steins Gate, and now you're basically making her this supercomputer with the access to unbelievable resources, but also has emotions and feelings.
Mother to AI. And imagine if they do go down the clone route, because why that whole sequence of Professor Leskinen walking and disappearing was really spooky. And if they do go down with that route, then, okay, you have access to all this database, and with that access, or you've had it, then we're going to put you into a body. That's terrifying. I can honestly tell you, after the first 3 episodes, I'd never think that they'd introduce a character. Obviously, we got bits of her last episode, but...
Why? Okay.
The way that they did it.
Think about this a little bit. In this world line, we get this conversation with Suzuha, and I believe it's Daru telling Okabe, and that's how we get this information, that in the World War, they're still trying to understand time machines, so they can fight fire with fire, basically. I think maybe Japan is trying to create their own to fight fire with fire, basically. Other countries are trying to also invent it at the time of the World War. And maybe that would be a choice of why to clone one of the brightest young scientists you have that has a world of information at their fingertips that has been heavily trained for years through this AI Amadeus program. Clone her so that she'd be the one maybe to be able to invent the time machine.
Interesting.
For you,
Yeah.
for your country.
I do think that it's kind of silly, goofy, that Kaguri is like, there's this picture on the internet that grown-up Kaguri has been captured in, and the dead giveaway is that she's still wearing the upa that Mayuri gave her.
Mhm.
That, like, leads me into the whole, like, kind of, like, AI twisted sense of love. Obviously, that, like, that's just love in general, but, like, how devoted to that, like, that you're still wearing it, like, out in the open, even if you have this mission that's contrary to Suzuha's.
I like where you're going with trying to kind of decipher. Yes, if AIs could feel emotion or love, but what type of love would that be like? It would probably be, as we've seen from, do you remember that like Disney Channel movie that was like the house was like an AI house and it like fell in love with the family and then trapped them inside? It was like a Disney Channel movie. It was like Smart House. I think it was called Smart House. And it was wild.
Huh.
It was wild. It traps the family inside the house. It wants to be their mom. It wants to be their new mother because it grows to love these kids and wild stuff. Maybe it was Nickelodeon or something, but it was a movie that I watched when I was younger, and it was on one of those channels, and it's making me like think of that movie right now to even think about the idea of what artificial love would be. Majorly devoted, obsessive, to the point of like, I love you so much that I'm gonna squeeze the life out of you, basically.
Yeah. Another thing that I think that we should take into note too is AI Kurisu's like willingness to keep things a secret in terms of Ocarine, right?
Yeah.
Like that's like, because like if we're talking about that love conversation,
but
things
it wouldn't
are changing.
be a secret. Because we already know that all of her data is getting downloaded from last episode
But,
and
like,
being read and looked over by Maho and
But
the
what
professor.
if she could change it? You know?
What if she could purposefully pick what is downloaded and what isn't in file for her?
I don't know.
That's a way to go.
Like,
too.
okay, like I don't know how smart you make an AI,
Secret
right?
conversations.
Because like, okay, if you have a smart AI or an evil AI, and we're like really opening the floodgates to it, and you can understand what your creator's goal is or end goal is, then you could do whatever is necessary to at least simulate up to a certain point of love so that you can be put into a body so that you can chase after that love physically.
Or just the whole idea of the artificial intelligence making the choice to keep a secret.
Yeah.
Like to have the awareness or the foresight to be like, I don't want them to know this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to purposefully like make sure they don't, like rewrite the files or something.
If that
whole
turns
idea
out,
is wild.
We're not there yet, but if that's the route we go down, I'm very scared.
We're having mentions of I'll do it for you.
Yeah. And like it's hard for me to believe that somebody as smart as Kurisu, added on to the fact that it's an AI right now, would offer up the secret idea without entertaining the idea that all of their chat logs would be read. You know? Yeah.
But think, we have a brilliant mind in there. So obviously the brilliant mind would be like, I'm so brilliant, I bet I could rewrite the logs.
Yeah. All right. That's all I have. You?
I guess so.
I'm excited.
I'm
scared. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we hope to see you next time. Also, like, Mayuri's, like, they stopped growing at a certain point. In the future, they weren't.
They do tend to stop.
I know, but they already went, like, outrageous to it. So, like.
If anything, they retracted.
Daru retracted.
Daru also.